Thank you for joining my journey to optimal health. The other day, we went over various different things with the nurse practitioner, Mary. She got to describe different things that relate to testosterone and our hormone levels. On the outside, perceptively, I look like a very healthy person. And for the most part, I was healthy. But what was shocking is that I found out that my testosterone levels were very, very low. And she's gonna go over the different symptoms that you can see when you have low testosterone, the different symptoms that you can look for when you have low estrogen or even high estrogen. There was one thing that she went over that was extremely important, and it's what I talk to all of my friends who ask me, hey Zevin, I wanna try this stuff, but I've heard about things as far as low fertility and sperm count when you go into different therapies like this. And Mary actually addresses this in the video. So this is something that you're going to want to watch all the way through. It is mind blowing. And I showed you transparently where my body is today. And I'm going to go all the way along the journey for where it is to total optimal health. We start to talk more about how testosterone and hormones can relate to anxiety and depression. This is something you're not going to want to miss out on. It is action-packed with so much information. Join us on this journey. It's going to be great.
So you're Zevin.
Yep, Zevin
It's
Clark.
nice to meet you. I'm Mary.
Very nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm a nurse practitioner.
Okay.
In most states, we have just about as much autonomy and prescriptive authority as physicians.
Okay.
So lots of people call me that. I can interpret labs, I can order testing, I can prescribe, I can do all of those things.
That's fair. Okay. I
Yeah.
just, I just had it confused
I
a little
don't want to
bit.
misrepresent myself.
Right. Smart. That's the smartest
Yeah,
thing to do. So yeah, thank you for clarifying. Okay.
there's just a huge need out there for people to get their hormonal needs met, and they're not getting them met through conventional medicine in a
Absolutely.
nutshell. So that's kind of why we exist. And it's just it's just been going crazy.
I've heard a lot of great things.
Yeah.
A lot of great things.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been working in this anti-aging hormone space now for about 15 years.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
yeah, people really haven't explained to them how their hormones work in their body, when there's a deficiency in a particular hormone, what kind of symptoms that can lead to, things
Right.
like that. So it's super busy, but busy is good.
Right. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's yeah,
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Yeah, and I mean, me myself, like I've only heard about these therapies, like hormone replacement therapy and a lot of the things that you guys are doing through like the grapevine of a lot of my friends who have been doing it,
yeah,
right? A lot of them have
right.
said, Zevin, you got to get on it. Well, first get your blood test done and see where you're at. But like they said
Yeah,
that once they got on it, it was like they've never felt better. And I was like,
right.
okay, well, I want to sign up for that. You know what I'm saying? I want to sign up for
And another distinction I'd like to make between like our organization and a lot of what's going on out there right now, we are big into prescribing safely and conscientiously.
right.
You know, people, a lot of people that don't want to get it prescribed have been like buying hormones out of someone's backpack at the
Yeah.
gym,
Yeah.
not getting their labs checked. They have absolutely no idea where they are, in terms of, am I having any issues around this? And so we're just big on that. So I kind of wanted to make that distinction.
Oh, I think that that's so important because
Yeah.
having it in a controlled environment where everything is being done transparently, where
Yes.
it's not like, okay, well, this is my friend and he gave it to me and I got to get it from you. And then like, I've just heard
Yeah.
so many like horror stories of stuff like that because
Yes.
I came from a background of working out a lot in the gym twice a day, doing a whole bunch of stuff. And you hear the horror stories, and that's not something that I definitely
Right.
subscribe to. and it's not something that I want my friends, family, associates, and even customers and clients to subscribe to.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. Just because a particular dose might be good for one patient doesn't mean it's going to be good for another patient. It's
Absolutely.
important that all of that be monitored. A lot of patients aren't aware of like conversion pathways in the
Right.
body, what testosterone can turn into, for example. So those kinds of things need to be monitored.
Right. No, that makes
Yeah,
a whole lot of sense. A whole lot of sense.
yeah.
That's
So
great.
you had your blood work done
I
on
did.
December 5th. Do
Yeah.
you feel like they took a lot of blood?
I mean, for me, I guess not. I mean, I've been used to needles for the longest time because of like NAD and the IV
Yeah,
infusions, things like that. So like it kind of seemed like a lot of blood, I guess, but
yeah,
like for the most part, no, it was easy peasy lemon squeezy, and it wasn't difficult at all. It was a 5 minute
yeah,
process, really.
right. I mean, I always explain to patients when we're reviewing the labs together that the lab panel that we do, it's pretty extensive in
Right,
terms of, looking at all the foundational aspects of overall health and wellness, and then doing a deep dive on the hormones. So we're really like popping the hood,
right,
which is a lot more than is done when a patient goes to their primary care physician, for example, for an annual physical. They just get, it's very cursory, the kind of lab work that's done. So,
good, good.
yeah,
I'm excited to dive in and hear about it because I mean, perceptively, I feel like a somewhat healthy individual, but so did a
yeah,
lot of friends, right? And they ended up saying that their free testosterone levels were almost feminine, you know? So I was like, wait, what are you talking about, dude? So like, yeah, I'd love to
yeah.
hear more on that.
So you want to go through it now? Are you ready
Absolutely.
to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of begin at the beginning, like at the top. The first thing we did was a CBC, which is also known as a complete blood count. Now,
Okay.
that is a typical blood test that you'll get in your primary care physician's office. Just a quick check on whether or not you're anemic, whether or not you have an acute infection, how your platelets look, which is how your blood clots. Just
Great.
there again, the foundational aspects of health.
Cool.
The only thing I noticed there that was, a little curious about, and I wanted to ask you some additional questions around, and this is, kind of what I do with the patients because typically I'm meeting them for the first time. Your
Great.
white blood cell count is low. If you look at the reference range, you're kind of outside that range. Now, acute infection dictates a high white count, but a low white blood cell count is typically seen in patients that have a low vitamin D level. Do you
Hmm.
take any vitamin D?
So here's the thing. So I used to take and be regimented on like my animal pack vitamins, but like
Yeah.
lately I cannot tell you in good conscience and not lie to you and tell you like, yeah, I've been taking vitamin D every day. Absolutely not.
So
No.
do they have a vitamin D in the animal
Yeah.
pack?
Yeah,
Okay.
I ran out like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and
Yeah.
I haven't gotten it again. So
Okay,
yeah,
so you haven't been consistently taking it, but it'll be interesting to see if you get it again and start taking it again. If the next time we look at your CBC, your white blood cell count is normal.
right.
Another very typical reason why a white blood cell count can be suppressed is if you've had Epstein-Barr, also known as mono. Do you know if you've ever had
I
that
have.
in your lifetime?
Yeah, yeah. I think in
Yeah,
high school or something like that. Yeah,
yeah.
sure.
So that has the potential to suppress the white blood cell count. And that just essentially becomes where you live with
Right.
your white blood cells. It would be interesting to see if you looked at old blood work and kind of tracked it and notice, geez, every time I have my blood work done, my white count's a little bit lower. It could just be the Epstein-Barr exposure.
Fair enough. And then so looking at my white blood cell count, what is like a standard amount of vitamin D that I should be taking on a day-to-day basis to supplement
That's
that?
a good question. So it depends where you live. You're a Colorado resident, right?
Right, right.
But do you spend like a ton of time outdoors, or you're inside like I am?
On a computer. That's
So
what I'm
yeah,
doing.
so a typical maintenance dose for vitamin D to get your levels between 50 and 80, which is where you want it, is
Right.
5,000 IUs. And
Okay.
you always want to take that with food. Why? Because vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin.
Right.
So it gets absorbed the best when you have food on board. Um, and I mean, vitamin D and zinc were the big buzzwords during COVID.
Hmm.
Why? Because they're the single biggest drivers of how robust your immune system is. So it's critically important.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
No, I love that. Great
Yeah.
information. The 50 to 80 is where you said the standard should be. Where was I?
Yes. Oh, we don't do a vitamin D level.
Okay.
Um, that's not part of our panel.
Right.
Typically people get a vitamin D level if they go to their regular doctor, but
Right.
that's kind of where you want to maintain it. I
Okay.
think traditional medicine will tolerate it as low as 30, but there again, I work in an anti-aging space environment. I want people in the optimal end of the range where
Hmm.
people hang out that have the least amount of symptoms, and
Fair enough.
30 is considered suboptimal.
Fair enough. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah. Beautiful.
Okay. So the next thing on your long list of labs is the CMP, which stands for Comprehensive Metabolic Panel. So there's a ton of information in there that gives me a really good indication of foundational health. It has kidney function, liver function, a fasting blood sugar, all of your electrolytes. So there's a lot of information involved in there. And kidney function, all completely normal. Your BUN, which is a primary liver kidney marker, was off ever so slightly, but I see that all the time when people are dehydrated.
Yeah.
Most people come to the blood drawing experience in a dehydrated state. And
Right.
sometimes it has the potential to skew a couple of the markers. Um, the most important marker, and if you like look at your labs after we get done talking, the EGFR, which stands for glomerular filtration rate. That's the most important kidney marker. Yours is 93. That's incredible, incredibly high. So
Yeah.
that means that your kidneys are doing a phenomenal job of filtering things,
Good.
toxins, all of that sort of stuff.
Good.
Um, Out of your electrolytes, your sodium and your chloride were both a little bit high. There
Right.
again, an indication of dehydration. What happens when you don't have enough water on board is your blood kind of gets thick. And so it has the potential to throw off certain readings.
Mm.
Sometimes it can be electrolytes, and sometimes it can be kidney function. So when you're talking to somebody, you just need to take that into consideration.
Fair enough.
Your fasting blood sugar was perfect, and all of your liver enzymes were good.
Great.
So, yeah.
Cool. Fantastic.
Okay, let's see. Cholesterol panel. Do you know if you come from a long line of people that have high cholesterol levels?
I mean, I would say yes, because I think that my dad suffered from something similar. So like
Yeah.
I would say yes and give you a thumbs up on that, but I don't know for sure. I'm like 85% sure though.
Yeah, so the way that the landscape of your cholesterol panel looks like familial dyslipidemia, which is a fancy way of saying from a genetic perspective, in spite if you could eat as clean can be, and certain aspects of your cholesterol panel are going to be skewed by virtue of your genetics.
Right.
And Do you know, like, if your mom or your dad especially is on a statin, which is a class of drugs that lowers those cholesterol
Oh,
levels? Has he ever mentioned it?
I mean, he when he was alive, he was taking a lot of different medications. I couldn't
Was
tell you
he?
what it was, to be honest, but, like, I could ask my mom after this and see what she
Yeah.
says. I'm sure that both of them maybe have been on some level of,
What
medication.
took your dad's life?
Liver function,
Okay.
he was, like, really low, because of his alcohol mixed with, a lot of the medications that they had him taking.
Okay.
It was yeah, I don't even remember the
But
exact
was there any heart disease?
um, not that I know of, not that I know of.
Okay. Do you know if there's any heart disease in your extended family, like your dad's brothers and sisters, your mom's, your grandparents?
Not that I've seen, not that I've heard, not
Okay.
that I've heard.
So you're kind of preaching to the choir with that comment. So
Right,
these skewed cholesterol numbers that everybody gets all spun up about, and they feel like, they open up their big cookbook, your levels are outside of range, you need to be on a statin, which is probably one of my most unfavorite classes of drugs. It's just, they're not good for so many reasons. And if you have familial dyslipidemia, in other words, you just come from a long line of people that have high cholesterol levels, but it doesn't necessarily translate into an increased risk for heart disease, there's
right.
absolutely no reason to do anything about it. Are you still pretty active? I mean, it sounds
I'm
like you're not working out as much,
I'm
but
getting more and more active, right? So
good.
I've probably in the last month, 2 months, outside of, like, getting COVID, which I think I got COVID, I've been going to the gym probably 4 or 5 times a week. So,
Good.
I mean, going
Yeah,
into the new year, I'm intending on doing the exact same thing, which is just staying in the gym as often as humanly possible that I can, as long as my work schedule permits, right?
sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But if you're not having any issues with physical exertion, cardio, things like that, like I said, this is probably just familial dyslipidemia.
fair enough.
Um, yeah. Were you fasting for your blood work? Do you remember?
Was I fasting, like, not eating?
Yes. In other
Absolutely.
words, okay, so did you go later in the day?
I went at, like, it was, like, 2 or 3, like, mid.
Okay. So chances are you had eaten by then.
Right, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I've definitely eaten by
So
then. I had pizza,
yeah.
probably scrambled eggs, a whole bunch of stuff, like.
So your triglycerides, which are an aspect of your cholesterol panel, are elevated. But
Okay,
if you had a meal on board, that's why.
okay,
There's no other reason other than that.
right.
Um, okay,
Moving
you ready for?
forward moving
Yeah.
forward, should I not eat before going to a
You
blood?
know, it I just wanna know whether you did or you didn't, so that when I'm looking at the labs, I'm looking at them through the proper lens.
Fair enough.
Like, it's like, okay, this patient went later in the day, they had at least 1 meal on board.
Right,
That's why their fasting blood sugar is high, which, by the way, yours isn't. So, even in spite of having food on board, you're managing your blood sugar well. Is there any diabetes or pre-diabetes in your extended family that you're aware of?
I wanna say that there might be, like, that's something that I'd say that there's, like, a 65-70% chance.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Your fasting blood sugar, though, in spite of going at 2 p.m. and having food in the mix, your blood sugar is completely normal, which is pretty huge.
great,
That means that you're managing the incoming sugar, carbohydrates well.
right,
Yeah,
love it, that's fantastic.
yeah. Okay, you ready for your testosterone level?
Let's hear this, yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, so um, we don't look at a free testosterone.
Fair
In
enough.
in the future, I'd love to see that added because it's a lot more indicative
Mhm,
of, you know, So total testosterone is the amount of testosterone that's free circulating in your bloodstream. The
Right.
free testosterone is the amount that's available to act on receptor sites. So
Mm.
it's more important. And this is a good point in time to kind of explain reference ranges. The reference ranges that have been established by conventional medicine are very broad.
Yeah.
Like let's just use the reference range for testosterone. It starts at like 250 and it goes, depending upon the lab, all the way up to 1100.
Mm.
You can imagine that a man with a testosterone level of 250 is going to feel vastly different
Right.
than a man with a testosterone level of 1100. I
Right.
mean, that is your primary hormone. So it affects sleep, it affects stamina, endurance, sex drive, mood,
Right.
muscle recovery after working out, you name it, your body composition, everything.
Right.
So that's kind of where men get into trouble when they trot off to their regular doctor's office and ask for a testosterone level. They get it. And in spite of the fact that they might have a lot of symptoms, if they fall within the magical reference range, you're not getting anything.
Fair
How
enough.
about an antidepressant?
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
kind of where the conversation goes. So anyway, having said all of that and kind of tried to establish a bit of context, your total testosterone 286.
Mine's low. Wow.
Yeah, it
Really?
is.
Wow.
Do you know if this is the first time, Zevin, that someone's looked at it?
For sure. I mean, I haven't
Okay,
got to the doctor in like, I don't even know, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years?
really? And you're
Yeah.
27.
Yeah.
So do you just, I mean, 6 years ago, like at age 21, was it because you were sick or
Um,
just
that
for a
was a
physical?
that was a guess of, like, when I actually went. I think it's been
Okay.
longer than even that. Just because, like, I was a person who, like, unless I'm dying, right, I'm not going to the doctor. Like, I'm just gonna
Yeah,
go, like, naturally in some different way,
sure.
and if I actually have to, then I'll go, but, like, for the most part, I was like, "Nah, like, I don't need to do
And
that."
tons of people feel that way. And I
Right.
really, based on the kinds of conversations that people typically have when they go to their regular doctor's office, I can completely understand why they try their best to stay out of that environment. They're
Right. Right.
misunderstood, they're bullied about what they're doing
Yeah.
from more of a natural perspective, all of those things. So I totally get that. But this will become your baseline.
Fair enough.
So
I mean,
just
hey,
kind
you
of
only
make a
live
mental note of that. Just,
right.
and the reason, and we've talked a couple of times, and I
Mhm.
asked you some pointed questions around lifestyle. Um, Things like not getting adequate sleep or having a real reverence for sleep. If someone's reporting that you're snoring, not having that looked into because you're never going to get a good restful night's sleep if you're stopping breathing all the time and
Right.
snoring.
Yeah.
You're always going to tell me, someone like me, no, I don't wake refreshed. Why is that? I spent 8 hours in bed, but
Right.
I'm not waking refreshed. So it's sleep, it's what's at the end of your fork, it's whether or not you move your body, it's how you manage stress, which is a big one in our whole culture. Everybody's just a big old stress bag,
Mm.
and it has the potential to suppress your hormone levels. In your case, most especially testosterone.
Fair enough.
So what's an optimal testosterone level for a guy that's 27 years old? It's probably between 1100 and 1200.
Mm.
In a lot of cases, we even blow through the high end of the reference range that traditional medicine will tolerate, because optimizing testosterone levels, or any hormone for that matter, it's very personalized. Like, you might feel fabulous at 800, and another guy would be telling me, I feel better, but I'm still not there. I'm not able to lift heavier in the gym, or, I'm not getting rid of that like
Excess
spare
body fat.
tire that I have around my waist, or, whatever. So it's very personalized where different guys feel their best. Um, then we looked at a TSH. That is stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. That's the classic thyroid marker. Interestingly enough, um, the things that the thyroid gland is responsible for, which the thyroid gland sits right here in the base of your neck,
Right.
it's a lot of the same things, especially in a man's body, that testosterone is responsible for. Energy, your ability to lose weight, if that's a goal, mental clarity, muscle recovery after working out, low grade depression. It's a lot of the same things. So, oftentimes, especially in a man, it's not only suboptimal testosterone levels, it's also a poorly performing thyroid gland.
Mm,
The little thyroid gland, it's quite the little workhorse in the body, but it's very vulnerable to stress levels. And
right.
stress comes in all different forms. I'll talk to some guy that's like, I just got married, we bought a house, and my wife is pregnant. All very happy events, but those take a toll on you in terms of financial worrying, your wife's health, a change in your marital all of that stuff.
Right, right,
Happy
right.
things, but stressful things.
Absolutely.
So oftentimes in men, it's a matter of optimizing both things, thyroid and testosterone. And I see it all the time. Let's talk about your TSH. So optimal for that particular marker is between 1 and 2, and you're at 1.9. So your thyroid performance is not only falling within the reference range, it's in the optimal end of the range.
Good.
So your thyroid's like spinning like a little top. Yay.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know much about the conversion of testosterone into estrogen? Is that
You're gonna have to
like,
explain that one to me.
okay, so this is a common conversion process that
Right,
happens in both men and women. And when you push on a particular hormone, and right now we're kind of talking about testosterone, some of that testosterone converts into estrogen. That is a pathway that needs to be monitored.
right.
Why does it need to be monitored? Because if it goes too high, it can cause symptoms. What kind of symptoms do you guys get? They get nipple sensitivity, and they get very emotional. Like,
Can't
they'll
have
see a puppy on TV and they'll start crying.
definitely can't have that. Can't have
So,
That's
and
fun.
and then the opposite of that is, if it, so that's too high. If estrogen goes too low, it can impede your ability to get an erection.
Right,
That's bad too. So there's a sweet spot for estrogen, and it's typically between 30 and 40. But there again, it's very personalized. Like, I'll start a guy on testosterone, we'll get his follow-up labs like 90 days later, and then him and I'll talk again. And it's like, wow, your estrogen level's 50. How do you feel? Fabulous. Well, then we're not going to interrupt that pathway. We don't interrupt the pathway unless the patient is symptomatic. And
right.
some guys can tolerate a little bit more estrogen without having those bothersome symptoms.
Fair enough.
Um, your estrogen level right now is 10.1. So I'm actually If you choose to use
10.1 in the standard is 30 to 40?
but here's the thing, the reason your estrogen is low is because your testosterone is low. They're
Fair enough.
kind of tracking together. So if you raise this side is automatically going to come up just by virtue of doing that.
Fair enough. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I want yours to be higher. It's a little bit too low. The other important thing that estrogen in a man is important for is bone health.
Mm.
You've heard of osteoporosis, right?
Yeah, of course. Well, I've heard of it. I don't really know what it is,
Yeah,
but absolutely
it's
I've heard of it.
typically more common in women. When you hear that term, it's more common in a woman, bone loss after menopause, but it can happen to guys too. Why
Mm,
does it happen to guys? Because somebody is not monitoring that pathway and perhaps driving that estrogen level too low. This is why labs are so crucially important.
right,
There's another pathway that I failed to mention because A, you're not on testosterone, so you're not doing it yet, or you don't have the potential to do it. Your blood can get thick. It's called secondary polycythemia. If you look at a vial of testosterone and you kind of tilt it,
right.
it's thick like syrup. It
Mm,
isn't, it doesn't look like water in a vial. And it has the potential to do the very same thing to your bloodstream. So your
mm,
blood can get thick. And some guys, and there again, that's a very personalized thing. Some guys' blood gets thick, other guys have absolutely no problems. But if it does, I need to notice it on blood work and tell you to go donate blood. That's how you fix it. Goes away immediately.
okay,
Yeah,
fair enough,
yeah.
fair enough.
And the last marker that we did was a PSA, which stands for prostatic specific antigen. It's the classic prostate marker.
Mm,
So it's just important to keep an eye on that for health reasons. Yours is super low. The lower the better.
uh,
You're very young, so I wouldn't anticipate that being an issue for you.
fair enough.
But yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. No, I mean, I'm very grateful that we went over this because, I mean,
Yeah.
it all makes sense. I mean, I could feel a lot of those things that you were saying as far as the symptoms of being low or being high, whatever it is. Like, I could definitely see how it can improve. So,
Yeah,
and the
for
stress, I
sure.
mean, I have enough stress for 10 people, so it makes a lot of sense, a whole lot
Yeah.
of sense. So,
I mean, I talk to so many guys, the entrepreneurial spirit that's out there now in this younger generation,
right,
guys are telling me they own 2 and 3 businesses. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that has got to be so stressful. And
yeah,
that has the potential to weigh on your hormone levels. You guys just have a different way of managing your careers. You don't necessarily want to work for a big company. You want to start your own thing but with that comes a lot of stress.
right, right,
And it just you work long hours. It's not like you're finished at 5 o'clock and like people
definitely.
from my generation.
Right. No, totally makes
It's
sense.
life is very, very different.
At
Yeah.
higher levels of testosterone, right? I've heard that it could affect your confidence and like your ability to handle stress. So will I be able to handle stress a lot easier than I were to like in this current state?
Yes.
Okay.
So a lot of what I hear from guys too is issues around anxiety and
Mm,
depression. And oftentimes low testosterone levels can kind of feed into that problem. And you optimize that hormone level. And I mean, anxiety is kind of tricky. It's kind of difficult to treat. It's multifactorial, but
right. Right.
optimizing testosterone levels is huge in making it better
Okay.
and absolutely improving your sense of well-being and confidence. Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, surprisingly, what has actually worked for my anxiety and different like since I've gotten the ketamine that you guys gave me, I've been trying to induce my anxiety. And there's very simple ways that I could do that, which is like drinking an exorbitant amount of caffeine, right? If I drink too much
Yeah.
caffeine, I go through the roof with my anxiety. And so I got the ketamine on Wednesday, drank like a cup of like espresso. My whole body was going out. It was in total disarray. And so I ended
Yeah.
up doing the nasal spray 1 and 1, and 15-20 minutes later, everything in my body had subsided from that anxiety. I was like,
Really?
wow, like this is
Oh, that's amazing.
impressive, very
I'm
impressive.
curious, how long did that last, that
It doesn't
calm that
last.
came over you?
Okay, so the calm lasts a while, right? The calm will last 3, 4, 5, maybe up to 6 hours. The initial like strong effects of ketamine, that'll last an hour though.
Okay,
Yeah, so
got
you
it.
go into like a little bit of like a tunnel, and I'm gonna do a video on ketamine specifically, so that way everybody can understand what
Oh,
it
that would
feels
be
like.
great.
But
Yeah,
yeah, you go into like a little bit of a hole where like you're there, but you're ascended past where your body and understanding and perceptive value actually is, and like all of your cares float away as if they're like not even there for like at least an hour,
yeah.
and then you come back to
Wow.
normal. What's really cool about ketamine, because I'm a guy who's had anxiety since I was like 16, right? So I've tried the
Yeah,
Klonopin, I've tried the Xanax, I've tried so many different things, weed, right? I've tried all of these things because that's something that Bloomble does, and a lot of those things, not necessarily weed, but your Xanax and Klonopins, you could take those products, they're gonna help a little bit, right? But the lingering effect is that it makes you tired, right?
sure.
This, it wears off in an hour, and you're straight right back to normal with the edge totally taken off. That's what's so extraordinary. I'm like, wow,
Wow.
this is impressive. Very impressive. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Very cool.
Yep.
That is a big issue. You know, if I've got 12 to 15 patients to talk to in a day, men and women, probably 6, 7, 8 of those people are going to have put in their intake sheets that they suffer with anxiety. It's
Yeah.
a big problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Epidemic
Yeah.
of today for sure. It is.
Yeah.
It's
It's
ridiculous.
things are very fast paced, and life has changed a lot.
Right.
And this is kind of the fallout from it that a lot of people are experiencing.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here as far as the estrogen blocking and the testosterone hormone replacement therapy? Like, is that something that we just move forward with immediately?
I
Is
mean, I'd like to.
I'd like to
It
as
just,
well. I'd like
yeah, it just, so you're only 27, and I don't know a ton about you, but I don't think you have any kids yet, do you?
no
Okay. Do you want to leave that option open
for
in your
kids.
life to have
Absolutely.
a family? Okay. So, and there again, if you're buying testosterone out of someone's backpack, you're probably not educated around the importance of protecting your sperm count when
Hmm.
you're on it. That's just one of those things. Giving somebody exogenous testosterone, in other words, from outside your body, has the potential to compromise your sperm count,
Hmm.
thereby compromising your fertility. Don't want to do that.
Right.
So there's another peptide blend that we run alongside of the testosterone to make sure that doesn't happen. And
Fair enough.
here's another little kind of annoying thing that happens to some guys. When you give them testosterone, their testicles get smaller, and guys don't like that either.
Hmm.
So that's
Interesting.
another thing that this peptide protects against. So
Right.
it actually does 3 things: protects your sperm count, keeps your testicles intact, and also encourages your testicles to produce your own natural testosterone. So it's
Interesting.
kind of like a synergy between what your body can produce and what we're giving you from the outside. And
Amazing.
then what we typically do is we give all of our patients an estrogen blocker, but we encourage them not to use it right out of the gate.
Fair
And
enough.
you would be one of those people that I would pretty much tell you don't utilize it unless and until you notice symptoms. If you don't notice symptoms, wait for your second tranche of blood work in 90 days
90
so
days.
we can reassess and see where you're at.
Okay.
And
Fair.
that's, I mean, other than that, I wouldn't recommend anything else for you. One other, I look at cholesterol panels all the time on our patients because that's always included in the blood panel that we do. And I see familial dyslipidemia all the time, like
Right.
I'm seeing with you. And there's a simple diagnostic test called CT calcium scoring. It's not covered by insurance because conventional medicine feels that it's too progressive, but it's less than $100. And all the hospital, you live in Colorado, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the hospitals and imaging centers in your community do this particular test. I can order it. I've sent lots of patients for it,
Okay.
but it actually, so the big thing about these cholesterol levels being high is that doctors get all spun up about it and think it's causing heart disease. That's kind of the
Right.
correlation here. So familial dyslipidemia means that just because you have high cholesterol levels, it doesn't necessarily translate into an increased risk for heart disease. So this particular test assesses your lifetime burden of plaque in your coronary arteries.
Hmm.
It's completely non-invasive. It costs like $75. And that's always like if every time I check a patient's cholesterol levels and they're like, every time they're high, I often will offer them that test just to allay their fears around this is like really increasing my risk for heart disease, not necessarily. So,
Hmm.
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. We can let it ride. Let's get it
Yeah.
going. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. So typically how the process works, I put the orders in your chart and
Okay.
then I let Aaron and Olivia who work in the office know that I've
Great.
spoken to you. And
Fantastic.
then they will reach out to you, go over my orders. If patients have questions around pricing, they can answer all of that.
Facts.
And then any patient that decides to move forward with my recommendations, everything just gets shipped to your house in like 7 days.
Yeah, the last question that I had. So the peptide that goes in unison or parallel with the hormone replacement therapy, is that also injectable?
Yes, it's
Okay.
a sub-Q injection. Yes, it's kisspeptin and ganadorelin is the
Okay.
peptide blend.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of HCG?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay,
No.
so up until a year ago, that is the product that we were using
Right.
for this purpose, this same purpose. But they've had like supply chain issues, like so many other things. So the compounding pharmacy has come up with this peptide blend that does the very same thing.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Sounds fantastic. Sounds fantastic. Well, I appreciate you doing this.
Oh, you're welcome, Zevin. It
Very
was
grateful.
fun. I
Yeah.
put some makeup on today.
You look great. You look
Oh.
great. I love it. I love
Sometimes
it.
if I just have a series of calls to do and I know no one's going to see me, it's like, oh, I don't have to get dressed up, but whatever.
Well, you
It
look great.
was
This
fun.
call is fantastic. No, it's going to help a lot of people. I think
Oh, good.
being transparent about it and how well you explained it, your over communication on it, I think it's going to help so many people. So many people.
Yeah, I talk a lot.
No, I love it. I love it. We needed it. We needed it. Trust me. So,
Okay.
all righty. Well, thank
All
you. And
right.
I'll call Aaron and them and let them know
Okay.
that we did this. So thank you.
Okay. See you later, Zevin.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.